Welcome back to the Code Made Well screencast about Git. And this episode, in this part, we're going to see add our first file to Git. So we're going to follow the slides again here, in case you would like to see the commands there as well. So here's the add first file entry. So what can we do here? Wait a second, that's not the place. Create the first file. Sorry. So creating the first file. In order to do this, well, we need you don't need to open. So normally you're going to use Git on the command line. That's what I'm explaining it. That's what I told you earlier. But in order to create your files, you don't really need to work on the command line. You don't need to use those tools. You can use the standard tools that you are used in your operating system. So on Linux and Mac, many people will be more comfortable using the terminal. But if you are using Windows and you're not yet comfortable with the Git Bash, then you can just use your regular tools. So you're opening the File Explorer, and you might recall that our project is in the it's the local disk, users, my name, it's probably your name in there, some directory, and then app. That's where we created our local repository. And this is empty. There is the .git directory is inside, but we can't see it here. So what we do is create a new file. So right click, new, create a text document. Let's say it's called readme. Okay. It's going to be automatically, so that's another thing, Windows automatically adds an extension and it hides it by default. You can configure that, we'll see how to do that at one point. I'll have to find it because I don't remember it anymore. So anyway, this is the file. Now there is an empty file, you can see it's empty. You can open it with some editor, so you can use just a regular editor, you can use so you can use Notepad, regular Notepad, or you can, if you install Notepad++, which I do recommend that you use Notepad++, then you can open it with that. So let's say you open it with Notepad++. I put in, you know what? Without that. So we have an empty file here now, just an empty file. And now let's see how can we add this empty file to the Git repository. So in order to use the Git repository, we need the Git Bash again. Here too, if you recall, we needed to cd it into the app directory. And then first of all, pwd shows where we are. So we are in the same location here as we are with the File Explorer. I can type in ls-l to show the file. So let's enlarge this. So you can see that there is a file called readme.txt. And if you are wondering where the .git is, so the A, so by default the ls will hide that all the dot file, all the dot directories, -l lowercase a will show everything. And actually just well, we're also loading a bash here. If you type in -l capital A, then it will show all the hidden directories except the single dot and the two dots, because they are so standard that you probably don't want to see them. So these are the tools that you can see, and well, for now disregard all the rest of the stuff that's here. The point here is that you have a file called readme.txt. Actually here you can see its size, so it's empty. And let's see what Git thinks about it now. So say git status. Git status is always good. It's a really good command. So git status shows us what it showed earlier, that we are on branch master. There were no commits yet. This is going to be our first. And then it says there's untracked files. So it's a list of untracked files. In this case, it's only one file, the readme.txt. It's also in red to make it easier for us to see that this is a file that's not tracked yet. So basically, non-tracked file means that Git officially doesn't know about it. So it just says, well, I found a file here, but I don't care it. Now, for naming, you might want to know that you have the Git repository, I mentioned this word a couple of times, or Git database, in the .git directory. And all this is sitting inside a directory called app. Everything which is inside the app directory, but not in the .git directory, is considered Git to be part of this sort of the project. It's in the it is called the working directory, where all your files are, and you can create directories and so on. Anything above it, so anything outside the app directory, is unrelated to totally unrelated. So this Git repository doesn't care about it. You could actually have several directories, brothers or sisters of the siblings. Yeah, that's the right word. The siblings of the app directory, which can be different Git repositories. So usually you would have, for each project, you would have your own Git repository, meaning its own directory, starting with Git init directory. Anyway, let's focus now the actual technique of adding these files. So it actually says, untracked file, it says use git add, the name of the file, to include in what will be committed. So Git has these two steps of adding file, of committing files. So committing is the word that's being used. Some other version control systems use check-in instead of commit, and I might use the other word, and in some places you might hear another word. It's basically the way I would describe is the action to record some change in your Git database, in your Git repository. And in order to do that, Git needs two steps. The first step is git add, which will bring the file into some kind of a mark the file to be to be added later, to be checked in, to be committed to the next change in this repository. So what we need to do is git add and the name of the file, readme, and tab will complete the name, and then enter. Well, you don't get any response, but if you run git status again, then it will look different. So now it says still on branch master, still no commit yet, but now it says changes to be committed. And this time the title is different, the suggestions use is different here. It says git remove something, okay, and then the name of the file is now says new file. It's also in green in case you see it, and which allows to see it more easily what's there, what's the status of each file. And so now it's in the staging directory. Let's go back to the slides, so just so you can see how it's related. So we did the git status, we saw the first information. Then in the next tile, we have some explanation about the various statuses of files. We're going to skip this now and record a separate video explaining that. And then here we come to the adding of the files. So git add readme.txt, that's what we did, and then git status again shows that the changes to be committed. Here in the slide you don't see the colors. And now is the actually action to commit the file. We go back to the terminal, and here we type in git commit, and here you can do two things. One of them is to type in -m and in quotes some kind of an explanation. This explanation is at this point not very important, but in the end don't fret about what you write here. This is basically the explanation of what changes you made in this commit. Or better yet, what you would need to should try this is why you made these changes. Well, maybe you should probably here do both. Have some explanation of what did you do and why did you do. And if it all depends, of course, the depth of the change. If you're going to change a typo, that's one thing. If you're making some huge changes to your code base, that's a different story. The point here is that at one point later in your development, when you look back into the history, that's what we are going to see. That's the first thing that you're going to see about each commit. And if you're writing here good commit messages, that means that it will be easier for you later to understand what happened in the code and at what point. But for now, just don't worry about it. So if you really don't know what to write here, then just say, okay, initial commit, okay. And that's it. Now it recorded the change. It tells me all kind of things. One of them is the part of the ID of this change. So each time you commit one or more files. It creates an ID, a unique ID for it, using the SHA1 algorithm or SHA1 algorithm. And it also explained to you that, well, it creates one file changed. We can do later on, we can see how can multiple files at the same time be committed, and then some other stuff that's not that relevant for us. On the slides, we can see the next slide is showing exactly this. Git commit, here I had a different commit message. It's actually maybe a better explanation of what happened, even though someone looking at the actual changes will be able to see that that's actually what happened, that we added the README file. The last thing here is that you should check what's the status after each commit, or at least I do, because it makes me feel better that I get this feedback. That when I type in git status, now it says it's slightly different what it says than earlier. It says on branch master, so we haven't changed our branch. It's a long way from now. We'll start using branches, and it says nothing to commit. Working tree is clean, so it's using the name working tree. I think working tree, working directory, they are just alternate names for the same thing. So everything, which in our case inside the app directory, but outside the .git directory, that's the working directory or working tree. And it's clean, meaning that there are no outstanding changes that Git doesn't. There's no outstanding changes. There are no files that new files that Git doesn't know about it. There are no files that Git knows about them and have been changed or removed or moved. So no changes, everything is fine. Git knows about everything. So what actually happened is that Git created some files in the .git directory, and there it recorded your file, the commit message that you send, the date, your name, and so on. And we'll see later on how to look at these changes and what happened, and how to add more changes to this repository. So that's it for now. Bye bye.